Good morning, friends. This is Pastor Lorri from First UMC in Kirksville, and it is good to be with you here today on this Friday in February, where it is very cold outside here in Northeast Missouri, and the snow is still on the ground. But it's bright outside. The sun is shining, so much so that I actually had to move my chair a little bit because in the minutes since I picked where I was going to greet you from this morning, the sun started blazing and was blinding me in the eye. So good morning. As I'm thinking today about how is it with our souls? It's a question I ask every week, and every week we may have just a slightly different answer to that question. We may have, as Reverend Jennifer mentioned earlier in the week, we may have lots of different answers all knotted and tangled up together, because that happens sometimes too. But today, with Valentine's Day over the weekend, I'm thinking a little bit about the times that we feel disappointed. And we have this sense of disappointment that may be one of the strongest things that we're feeling. Now, sometimes we can trace to the exact roots of that disappointment. Somebody in our life didn't do something that we expected them to do. And most of us have probably had some type of relationship where we've had to deal with making those expectations clear. To other people, because sometimes we get disappointed when we expect someone else to know, without us saying a word, what it is that we want. Sometimes we have to deal with whether our expectations are accurate, whether that's something we should expect from that person, because they simply may not be able to meet what we expect. Sometimes we especially run into that with ourselves. I don't know if any of you ever find that you're disappointed in yourself for not being able to meet your own expectations. And then sometimes we're disappointed with God. And that one sometimes is a little scary for us to admit. We may have come somewhere in our life with the idea that it's not okay to feel disappointed or angry with God. And that even if that's how we truly feel, we have to try to make it that we're not that way. That somehow it's okay because God is God and we're not. And so we just have to be okay with that. But I would encourage us today that honesty is at the root of any relationship. And that goes for our relationship with God every bit as much as it does for our relationships with the flesh and blood humans around us. If we are disappointed in God, if God's actions that we are able to sense did not meet our expectations, that's something real that we deal with. And God is certainly able to receive those from us as we express that. And we're definitely not alone. If you go into Psalm 22, it's actually the one right before our favorite 23rd Psalm that Scott and Jennifer used last Sunday. It begins with this expression of disappointment from the one who wrote it. And it begins with words that actually Jesus quoted from the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me, from the words of my groaning? Oh, my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but find no rest. This is an expression of disappointment, right? This psalmist expected God to show up in different ways. And so this honesty is where the psalm begins. Now, that's not where it ends. The psalmist goes on to express that it's because of the goodness of God that there was this expectation of something different, and goes on to remember the ways that God has been faithful It was you who kept me safe on my mother's breast. Do not be far from me, for trouble is near and there's no one to help. It goes on, and then it winds up. He did not hide his face from me, but heard when I cried to him. And so, as we're thinking today about how it is with our souls and what we're dealing with, if there is some sense of disappointment, I have a feeling that especially as we have been dealing with this pandemic for a long time now, more months than we want to think about, the end is not here yet. I would imagine that many of us have disappointments. And I would encourage us to honestly take those to God. And that if we have safe people in our life that we can express those with, to do that as well. And then my prayer for us as to where we see the presence of God in the middle of things, because one of the things I do strongly believe is that God is present. Sometimes, though, we're not going to see God in the big ways that we might expect, but sometimes it's going to be through the small things. And I read something just a few moments ago by Sarah Clarkson. We have to believe the witness of the small things. We scan the horizon of the world looking for hope, for some great sign. And she had posted a picture of a little daffodil blooming on her windowsill. She said, but sometimes it is in these tiny things that we so often miss or we just disregard, like that beautiful sunshine coming through my window. We've had some dark, cloudy days where I would have given anything for that bit of sunshine. She says, it's so easy to think that the small things mean nothing, or that their fragility cannot bear our anger and questioning and need. But yet beauty, especially the ordinary kind, the kind we see right in the middle of our everyday lives, it has a strength whose capacity to endure dares us to believe it, to believe in God's presence, and to hang on to those small things just as much as we do the big ones. And so as we think about those things in our life that mean the most, that we are taking with us, sometimes they're big gestures. I have a empty vase here that once held a big bouquet of flowers from some, either some holiday or some just out of the blue. But probably what I treasure the most are the tiny little reminders. Those ones that maybe don't even leave any kind of tangible thing to take with me, but simply a memory. A memory that resides within my heart of a time that I knew I was loved, without a doubt. And so I pray for all of us as we go into these days ahead, that those times of knowing we are loved will surface to our minds, that we will remember those, that we will cherish those. Maybe we'll share that memory with someone else, and that as those new moments come, because they will in the days ahead, that we will be able to recognize them for what they are. Those thumbprints of God's love for us in our world, no matter what form they take, no matter how big or small, no matter how much they would make sense to anybody else, or would only be something that we would recognize. Let's keep our eyes open. Let's receive those and treasure those in our hearts. And when the disappointment seeks in, that we would remind ourselves, like the psalmist did, of all the ways that we have known we are loved, that we are loved still, and will be loved in the future. Because our God is a good God, even in the middle of the disappointments and hurts of life. So friends, go in peace. I'll see you on Sunday. I'll be up front with Pastor Scott, Reverend Jennifer will be filling in at the Presbyterian Church across the street. So we will all see you Sunday in one way, shape, or another. We'll still have chat after church as normal. And so go in peace. Stay warm. It's going to be bitterly cold if you're here with us in Northeast Missouri. And we'll see you soon. Have a good day, friends.